Well, let's bring in Nader Hashemi. He is the director of the Center for Middle East Studies at the University of Denver. Thank you for your time, sir. First off, how do you foresee this playing out in Iran? What impact will these reimposed US sanctions really have on the ground?
Well, I don't think the impact will be very significant. Iran has already been sanctioned to death. And the problem is that these sanctions are only recognized by the United States. The United States is very isolated, and most of the international community opposes this new attempt to impose new sanctions on Iran. So I think the impact will be minimal.
Well, that's my next question. How isolated is the US in all of this, and does this add to its isolation?
Well, it's very isolated. In fact, the United States is becoming an international laughingstock, primarily because it's trying to invoke the provisions of an agreement that it itself publicly withdrew from 2 years ago. So on that level, the United States has very little credibility. And of course, at the UN Security Council last month, the United States tried to, pass a resolution calling for new and renewed UN sanctions on Iran. But of course, they lost the vote by a wide margin. So I think, this is another reflection of the deep contempt that the United States has for international law. About 3 weeks ago, the United States even invoked sanctions against the International Criminal Court, banning the chief prosecutor from coming to the United States. So this is part and parcel of a longstanding U.S. policy under the Trump administration that rejects international law.
Some have speculated that the US, the Trump administration, is spoiling for a fight with Tehran in the lead up to the US election on November the 3rd. What do you think?
Oh, I think that's exactly correct. I mean, what we're seeing right now is in the last few months a sort of a renewed attempt to escalate tensions with Iran and increase pressure in Iran. So over the last several months, you've seen the United States seize Iranian cargo headed for Venezuela on the high seas in contravention to international law. You're also seeing the United States and Israel stage a series of clandestine and covert bombings of Iranian military and nuclear installations. And now you're seeing today at the United Nations an attempt by the United States to justify its call for new sanctions by invoking the UN Security Council and by trying to mobilize UN member states to support the United Nations. So this is part and parcel of a concerted effort in the last remaining days of the Trump administration to try and pressure Iran and bring it to its knees. And of course, the time is not on the side of the Trump administration. There's 44 days left before the next American election. And if Joe Biden becomes the next president, then we'll be in a very different political landscape. We'll be back to the Obama years and a very different approach to Iran.
Okay, thank you for your analysis, Nader Hashemi, the director of the Center for Middle East Studies at the University of Denver.
Thank you.